Hello everyone, Bhavna Gunwani this side. Today in this session we will discuss about database connectivity using ADO.NET disconnected approach. Earlier we have already discussed about connected environment and we have completed the CRUD operation with best practices. So basically in disconnected environment, a subset of data is fetched from the main database or the data store and store in a memory cache using data sets. Basically, here we have certain data provider classes which help us to store the data or caching the data into the data sets and data tables. And as per the requirements, we keep getting the data from there. We do the CRUD operation in that data set. And whenever our database gets connected again or reconnected with the internet or server, it will be implementing all the CRUD operation to the database. You can see that here guys, this is a SQL server database. The moment we would like to create a connection using SQL connection, we will be using SQL data adapter class. This SQL data adapter class will basically taking the bridge between the data source, this is the data source, and the data set. And this adapter wraps the connected classes to provide this functionality. It basically provides a method to retrieve the data in the disconnected object and a method to reconcile modified data. And once the data gets loaded into this data set, we always try to do the CRUD operation with this data set. And whenever, as I discussed, our database will be reconnected or a data source will be reconnected with the application or server, whatever changes would be there in this data set, all will be connected to the SQL server database. So guys, data set can be modified independently and the changes sync back to the main data source once it will be reconnected. Disconnected environment components are shown in this diagram. As I discussed, SQL Server database is a data source. We need to create a connection by passing the connection string. Then this adapter class will take the initiative to fetch the data from database and keep it into the data set. Earlier in the connected environment, whatever CRUD operations we were handling using database directly. We were using the insert command, update command, delete command. But this time we will be doing the CRUD operation with this data set rather than directly from data source. So guys, data set, what do you mean by this class? It is available in system.data namespace. It consists a set of tables or a collection of disconnected record set. For example, you want to fetch two data tables in one data set. One is a employee and another is a department. So it can have a table based upon index 0, index 1 or name of the table. And you can modify both the tables simultaneously or respectively. Whenever this database or a data source will be reconnected, those changes into those databases will be refactored to your data source. It caches your data to be used in the application. Once the data is stored into your data adapter, it will be caching your data to your data table or data sets. If you have only one data table, you do not need to require data set. You can only create a data table for that. As I discussed, that data set consists of multiple data tables, and if you ever realized, the data table contain the data in the form of tabular way or tabular form, that is using rows and columns. So you can have multiple data rows in one data table to store the record. Under that we have multiple columns associated. We can have a relationship between two data sets combined into a data set which is having the relationship in the data source as well, that we can use to create a logical building. We do have a constraints or limitations that can be applied to particular field or column when we talk about the dataset components, especially the data table itself. So it exactly works like the complete table form or a collection of data rows and columns in which the operations can be implemented, whether it's a select, insert, update or delete operation. I hope you have a clear picture about it. that how the connected and disconnected environment is different. In the connected, you every time hit to the data source, but here you first fetch the data in the data table or data set and you do the CRUD over there. Whenever it will be reconnected with the server, the operations will be modified into your database. See you super soon to do all these implementations. Until next time, stay tuned. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome back. Bhavna Gunwani this side. Earlier we discussed how the disconnected approach is different from the connected one. Let's try to implement practically how to make my application setup for disconnected environment and completing the CRUD operation with best practices. Let's switch to VS 2019. I am already over this particular project. I'm going to add a new project this time. I'm not making changes into the previous one. Taking ASP.NET Core Web App Model View and Controller. So here I'm giving this project name as Core ADO Disconnected Architecture Project. Using .NET 5.0, I'm not using any authentication type. I'm keeping it none. Let's create a new project. Afterwards, I will set this project as a startup project. So whenever I'll run my application, this project will be running out of both the projects in the same solution. Let me just make a build of my project and keep it ready to make certain modifications. So you can see that it's a very fresh project, no products or something. My disconnected architecture project is running. Now what I want is I want to do the CRUD operation with product only. You people are very clear. First of all, we need to create a product class. Let's keep this as inventory class. Public integer ID. You can generate a prop using a shortcut. The second prop is for name. The third prop is for price. The next prop is for quantity. And the next prop is for added on particular date time. Now once the model class is ready, we need to have a database table corresponding to this particular model class. Let's switch to SQL Server Management Studio. Let me connect with the server. Earlier I had created a database sample DB. I'm writing this table in the same database. I'm starting a new query for sample DB. So you can see that sample DB is selected. Now I can start it creating a table here. Create table. Table name is inventory. In this table, I'm believing I should have integer, name, price. Price is of type money. Let me keep writing these keywords in capital. Then we have quantity. Then we have added on date, date type. Now I want to keep this integer ID integer as identity. Identity means it will be auto generated starting from 1 incremented by 1. It will be considered as a primary key. Name should be not null because primary key also has a property of having not null values. In case we don't enter any date, the default date would be the system date. So I'm using a getDate method to set up my default date. The table is created. As of now, Let's say I have some sample values here. Insert into inventory values. The ID will be auto generated. I need to write down name, price, quantity. Added date will also be default. So you have to mention here that you are just passing three values: name, price, and quantity. Whenever we use a keyword which comes blue in color, we keep writing it in square brackets because name is also a keyword. Let me try inserting if it works. I can insert couple of records to work with. King, Kocher, Sarah. I am extremely sorry guys. It should be the product name, na? Inventory name. So let me write mouse, keyboard, scanner, and printer. The first one is that's okay. I will update it whenever my edit will work completely. 12, 15, 20, and then 10. The first record is already inserted. Let me insert rest 4. So you can see that if I will try selecting my records, select star from inventory, I should be having 5 inventories. Let's start working to make a first operation, which is select all the inventories and populate it to the index action method view. Let's start it up. So for that we need to create one inventory controller. I have already discussed the data access object or a layer with you. I will be implementing the same in this project as well. So I'm going to create a controller first. I'm creating an empty controller, naming this controller as an inventory controller. Afterwards, I'm creating a folder for data access object DAO, and here I'm going to create, first of all, I'm going to create an interface inventory data access layer, and after that I'm going to create a class inventory data access layer. In inventory, first of all I'm going to create public returning an enumerable list of inventory to get all inventories. I need another method to add a new inventory, which will take a inventory object to insert. Afterwards, I need a get inventory that will return the inventory object based upon the ID of the inventory passed. Then I need delete inventory that will return nothing where the ID and inventory object needs to be passed. Then we have edit inventory ID and inventory object needs. So our interface is completely ready. We have to implement this interface into my inventory data access layer. And as whatever abstract methods we will be having in this interface, we need to implement all of them. As of now, I'm just writing their definition so that I will not get any error. I earlier discussed with you, we will be passing the connection string from the app setting. Here I will be writing my connection string objects. Under that, the name of the connection string I am keeping here is a default connection. The data source is, I can write dot as well, but I am writing the valid name so that you can just make a clear picture about it. Database or a initial catalog. I prefer writing the technical words. Initial catalog is the right term for it. Keeping it here as in sample DB, that's my database name. I'm not using any username or password, so integrated security sets to true. Now I will go to my inventory controller. As I discussed with you, you first need to have a controller, inventory controller. Under this controller, you need to inject your I configuration dependency to read your app string. Here I am creating the inventory data access layer object. This is available in a DAO folder and this is available in Microsoft extensions package. And here I am gonna instantiate my inventory data access object, passing the dependency as it is to my data access object class or layer class. Now in this inventory data access layer, I should have a constructor which is waiting for the configuration dependency. Here I am creating a I configuration type of getter, get property. And here I'm gonna assigning this value to it. Afterwards, I actually need to read the connection string using this configuration key value properties as well. Let's say if I want to get all the products, I will first go to my get all products or inventories. I am just keeping this method at the top because I wanted to implement it first. Guys, here I can see that the get inventory method is not yet implemented. So first of all, I will be creating str connection string or whatever name I can give it to this connection string equals to configuration. There is a key value pair configuration. The name of the key is connection strings. Default connection. Is it the right name? Let me check. Connection strings default connection. After that, I will be creating a list of inventories. I will return this inventories from here. Once I will populate it. As of now, this list is empty. Here I need to get the data from database using disconnected approach. Now I have to create a SQL connection. I can use this approach. You can see that I'm getting error because this is a new project. Here I need to install my data SQL client package. And once the package is installed, it will import in this particular class. Although guys, you really don't need this because we don't have to open the connection. so that you have to take care of closing it on time. So you can just keep it in a normal statement this way. Once the connection is created, I'm going to create a string query which I need to execute to populate my data set. Query equals to select star from inventory. Afterwards, I just need to use a SQL data adapter class. So guys, we have to pass here the query and connection. Earlier, we were passing our query and connection in the SQL command that we have to execute manually. The SQL data adapter will take this query, run it over connection, will take the data, and that data we will fill in the data set. So as of now, I have only one table, so I can use a data table. I will tell you by both. As of now, I'm using one table, which is data table rather than data set. The difference between both of them, the table consists only one table from data source and set contains multiple tables in it. Here we have data table instantiated. We will say whatever data we have with adapter after executing the query and fetching it up from the data source, we need to fill that into the data table. And after that, I would like to add this data to my data list or inventories. So here I'm going to execute for each loop. The number of data rows I'm having in this data table filled by the data adapter, I would like to iterate it. So I will iterate a data row based upon the number of rows we have in data table. Inventory object in each iteration. Afterwards, I would like to populate my inventory object. Guys, this data row has a number of records I have in my select star from inventory command. Let's say if you have this particular table fetched into your data table, the first row is this king, where ID will be accessed by the index 0. So you have two options. Either you can write down the index 0 or you can write down the column name. I generally prefer to use by the column indexing. Now the question is, the data row consists of integer value, but whatever we pick from the data table or a data row, it comes in an object or a string format. We need to convert it into the right type. So we need to convert our data row data into the integer type this way. Similarly, inventory dot name will come, that is in first index, convert them into toString. Inventory dot price, that is in second row, second indexing, sorry, but this will actually is of money type. Money means decimal. I can show you the inventory model class. It's of decimal type. Decimal dot parse, whichever format you can take this up. And then we have quantity. Either you can convert by the ID or you can use a parse method. Choice is totally yours. So basically, once the inventory is populated, I need to add this inventory object to my list of inventories. And the number of times this loop will get executed, the number of times the new object of inventory gets created, data gets picked it up from the data row and populating the object, adding this to the inventories list. The moment I will return the inventory list from here, it will be returned to my action method. Guys, now let's keep one thing. In the index, let's make a breakpoint here. I don't have any view. I haven't returned anything here. Let me just write down here inventory DAO dot get inventories. So I will see that the moment I'll call my index action method, this method gets called up. Is it returning anything? I will see by the breakpoint. If we have data in this, it means data gets returned to the place. So let me run this program. Moving ahead to the inventory controller index action method, navigating to the get inventories, you can see that the data adapter is having a object which is having the values true. It means data is parsed. After this line number 27, you keep your cursor on data table. As of now, it's showing empty. Just go to the rows and check. How many rows? It's evaluating 5 rows. Let's iterate these 5 rows. 5 times the inventory object is created. We'll keep adding it to the list and then that list has to be returned. Okay. Now, if I just have returned the inventories list from here, we need to add this to the model binding to populate or create my view. So I'm just calling this method directly to my list or here, and based upon this list returned from the inventory DAO.get inventories, the view has to be created. I'm going to create a view with the scaffolding template, converting it to the list type. The model class is inventory class. Once it gets done, just a minute, it takes time initially to load the scaffolding template. Let me make a breakpoint once again and check this up. So here I have inventory index. 5 times this loop will iterate. I think 3, 4 and then 5. This will be given to the inventory. Just have a look. It has count 5 objects it is returning. In each object we have certain values. That list will return to the view and view will populate the respective table. I hope guys you are pretty clear how the things gets taken up. Very simple. You just need to take your data into the data table with the help of data adapter. You don't have to open or close the connection. Whenever your application will be connected, you have to make changes into this data table. The new row needs to be added to this data table. The update and delete also will take place in this data table. Whenever the connection will be made by the server or data source or a database, it will be modifying your operations or your objects to the data source itself. I hope things are pretty clear to you guys. See you super soon with the next operation with the help of disconnected architecture. Until next time, stay tuned. Thank you so much everyone. Hello everyone, welcome back. Bhavna Gunwani this side. Today in this session we will discuss the another next operation to add a new inventory using disconnected environment. The earlier we have already get all the inventories using the get inventories method using the data access layer that we have invoked from the inventory controller itself. Now the another method that we have in the data access layer is the add inventory, which will be passing this inventory object to this particular method. Earlier in the previous CRUD operation I already discussed with you guys. First of all, we need to create a public iAction result create, which will actually create a view based upon inventory class. So we just need to add a scaffolding template. We need a form that has to be submitted by user. Here we need to say that create scaffold template based upon the inventory class. The form has to be created. and the once user will submit that form, the create post has to be executed. So you can see that the scaffolding is getting implementing. The moment I will execute this template, the inventory object gets populated with each and every value from this particular form at the time of submitting, and that will make a post action. We need to create another post action, HTTP post. This time, whenever I'll execute this method or call this method while submitting the form for submitting or creating a new inventory, this will send the inventory object. It is available in the models folder. As of now, the models folder is not resolved for this controller. Let me just say quick actions and resolves. And over here, I can just make a implementation of calling this add inventory from DAO. We have a prod inventory DAO. Over there we have add inventory, and over there I'm gonna pass this inventory object as it is. And then I can say return redirect to action. Which action? Index 1. I'm not implementing this method as of now. I'm just telling you I have this object values which I'm gonna pass into this method or not. Let me make a breakpoint to both the creates. If you want to cross-check how index is working, please go to the previous lesson. You just go and check how the data gets populated into the inventory. So I'm going to the index to get all the inventories. I click on this create new. I can go this way or I can make a changes here that /create. The get in create is actually getting called up based upon the inventory model class. The form is created. I don't have to write down ID and added on date, guys. Why? Because the added on date is automatically added as per the system date, so I'm removing it. And the ID also will be auto generated, so I don't need this ID to be asked from the user. I just need a name, price and quantity. Based upon that, the data will be filled it up. Let me just run this once again. The moment I will click on the create new button over the inventory index, it will also go to the get inventory here, or if you want you can make a modification here also that you want to navigate to the create. So this will display the form based upon the inventory. I just need to add the inventory. Let's say I am just writing AirPods 14,000. The moment I click on the create, I just need to check this object whether it is populated or not. So you can see that the object is having the data populated and the same has been sent to this particular add inventory. Now I have to modify this add inventory method to implement and to add a new record to my data table. So let me just go to my data access layer and implement this add inventory method as well. So first of all, I'll go to my add method. I will create a connection string. It will be taken up from the configuration object connection strings. Out of that, multiple connection strings can be there. I wanted to pick the default connection. We'll say SQL connection equals to new SQL connection and passing the connection string in it. The same string query you have to populate, guys. Select query or just query equals to select star from inventory. After that, SQL data adapter will actually communicate with the data source and will try to get the data based upon this query. That data needs to be populated into the data table. and then we have to fill the data from data adapter to data table. After that, as I discussed, we need to add a new record into the data table only. So I will be creating a data row equals to new data table. Whatever data I already have in data table, I just wanted to add a new blank row in it. We'll take the data from this product or inventory and I will upload that into the data row, which is blank added into my data table. Data row field 1, because the ID 0 or data row at index 0 will be the ID that will be auto incremented. I just need to populate with name, inventory dot name, data row at index 2, that is a price, data row at 3, that would be the quantity, and after that I need to add this modified row into all the rows. And after that, I just need to tell to the data adapter whenever the data source has to be updated once it is connected. We also need a SQL command builder for executing the insert, update and delete commands. And here I need to tell that whenever the data source has to be updated, the command will be inserted the new data row into the database, and simply say if any pending or non-updated changes are there in the data table that needs to be updated to my adapter that is communicating with the data source as well. If everything works successfully, it means the new record is inserted. Let me save and try to make it happen if everything goes fine. So this method will be called it up from this post action method. So first of all, the create get will be called up. This will return a form. I have to submit this form. This inventory is having the complete object. That object is sent to the add inventory. Let me check everything works fine or not. Let me check what I have in the name airport assigned to the first field, second field and third field index. Added to the data table, updated the data adapter to communicate with the database, going back to the index, and I can see that airport is successfully added. Guys, I'm really hoping how to work with the data adapter to just fetch the record from the data source and do whatever operations you wanted to do with the data adapter. Whenever your database and your application will be in sync, whatever changes are yet to update or pending changes would be there, it will be updated by the data adapter to the data source back. So by this way, we have completed our two steps. One is an index operation and another is a create. In the further operations, we'll talk about details, edit and delete. Until next time, guys, stay tuned. Thank you. Happy learning. Hello everyone, Bhavna Gunwani this side. Today in this session, we will discuss the disconnected environment, where we will be talking about the details action method. Earlier, we have already discussed about the index and create. If you have any idea about the previous lessons, we have gone through the index action method this way, and we have gone through the create action method this way. Now, the moment we will be talking about the next action method, let me just run it and scroll it out, the operations that we have completed till this point. I will just navigate to the inventory. The index is working fine and the create new is also working fine. It is a get request and this is a post request which take place to insert the new record. Now I will tell you, the moment I click on the details, I need to pass the respective inventory ID over the route here, and based upon that action method needs to be created. So guys, very first I'm going to my views folder, the shared folder, underscore layout. This is the home and this one is inventories. So the moment I will run my application, I will see the inventories in my menu bar. Okay. The second thing I would like to tell you is the moment I go to my inventory controller and I have an index action method to get all the inventories, I will just go to the view, and I have earlier shown you this thing as well. The moment I will be passing the primary key from here, this is commented out initially. I just need to write down this way. When I'll go to the edit action method, I'll also pass the ID. When I'll go to the details action method, I will also pass this ID. When I'll call this delete action method, I will also pass this ID. So the details is also passing this ID at the time of clicking over the details link to navigate to the action view, action method. Let me just tell you this thing, that ID is getting passed or not. So when I click on details, the item ID is passed. Now I have to create an action method details which will be holding up the value ID. Now I'll just go to the inventory controller and I'll create a detail action method. This will wait for the ID. We have to return a view. At the time of returning to the view, we have to return the product or inventory based upon the ID. So I have a method associated with it, inventory DAO dot get inventory, to which I need to pass the ID. This method will find out the inventory based upon the ID, and then that inventory has to be rendered to the view. We need to go to the inventory manager or an inventory data access layer to get the inventory by ID. So I have a method associated with it. I'm keeping it at the third position. So here the same thing has to be repeated, guys. We first need to create a string connection. Then we have to create a connection. Then we have to select query. Then we have to execute the adapter to keep the data from the data source into the adapter class. We'll be creating a data table. Data adapter dot fill data table. We have to iterate for each and every record. Wherever the condition gets evaluated, where the data row at index 0 is equals to the ID parameter. This is of object type. We need to typecast. We need to instantiate the inventory. I'm keeping it at the top. And we have to assign the inventory properties with this particular record. In case the record does not found, you can keep a else here or return 0 or something. I will do it in some time. And I have to return this inventory object. Again, I'm repeating, guys, the same thing as the get all. Just we have to check only one record in the entire records where the ID matches with the data row with the index 0. We need to populate our single object inventory with all the properties. Also the inventory dot added on equals to whatever column you have it over there. I think we have data row with 4. Do we have to date time? No. So I can convert this to convert dot date. Afterwards, this inventory needs to return to the get inventory method, and this method we are calling from inventory controller. Let me make a break, or based upon that we need to create a detail view. Let me go to the Azure view, add view, detail, inventory class, and just we need to wait for the scaffolding to build this template, and let me just make a debugger and get it tested whether the object is loaded to the details view or not. Let me just make a breakpoint here rather than everywhere. I'm just removing it. Simply we need to make a breakpoint in the data access layer get method. That's everything is fine. I'll go to the inventories index, and from there I'll go to the details one. I click on the details. The ID one is passed. The get ID gets called up. The SQL connection created. The data that we have in the data row, 7 counts we have, it will match with the first one only. We'll go out of the loop if the if condition is not satisfied. So it is still checking for each and every record, but we need to make a condition that if the record gets, we need to return from there only. So here I can see that once the view gets populated, I should have the details. Guys, I really hope that the details view is also clear to everyone. Now this get inventory method will be used whenever you wanted to edit. You have to first get the product by the ID and then you have to edit. Similarly, when you are supposed to delete, you first need to get the product by ID and then you have to delete. I hope I'm pretty clear with the requirement. See you super soon with the next operation that needs to be completed, that is edit and delete. Thank you so much guys. Stay tuned. Happy learning.
Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please do share with your friends and the colleague, and also do subscribe to Scholarhead YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that the information about such video you will get automatically.